Lee Cooper misled the board regarding District Policies FCB and FCB-R. He intentionally deceived the board with his interpretation of and comments regarding those policies.
So we had, and Mr. Wetzel, he did write us a nice email. So he refers to policy FCB and FCB-R. Both are policies under facilities and really address the use of Jeffco facilities and how they're used. So the period of months and the timing that he brought out was how we will use the facility if we change the use of facility. It doesn't address student programming. It doesn't address student equitable access and opportunity to an education. That is not in that policy. It is how we use the actual facility. And it talks about that timeline.
After hearing his comments, you would never know that the titles of those policies are closing schools. You would never know that the first sentence of the policy is about school closures. The Property Management Department will recommend a study of any potential school closure. You would never know that the call to action, the last sentence in the policy, is the Property Management Department will make a recommendation to the superintendent with respect to any school closure. This policy is very clearly about school closures and the processes that should be followed. And just because the policy doesn't talk about programming and equity, it doesn't mean that it can be ignored, like he wanted you to believe with his doublespeak. It merely means that the policy doesn't talk about programming and equity. Lee Cooper very deliberately only told you an extremely small part of the policy and completely avoided its very clear purpose and intent: to provide a facility-centric process and timeline for school closures. And there is no doubt that a school was closed. Take 5 minutes and read the policy. It's not long. You will see why any reasonable person and many parents would think these policies provide a clear framework and timeline, and a degree of warning for closing school. You will see that Jeffco clearly and blatantly violated District Policy FCB-R with the sudden closing of Allendale. You will see why it is perfectly clear that Lee Cooper deliberately and intentionally misled the board and should be immediately fired, as he can no longer be trusted. Finally, you will see why, with the district's failure to follow the very clear process contained in FCB-R, Jeffco Schools has deservedly and completely lost the trust of students, parents, staff, and taxpayers. Shame on Jeffco!